This is the brand new Apple AirPod Home Max Ultra Pro Max Pod. I'm not sure what it's called. In all seriousness, this is the brand new Apple HomePod for 2023, a revision of a design and a product that didn't do too well for Apple when it first released. So why Apple decided to bring it back is interesting. I will say that I've been a huge fan of the Apple HomePod Mini. I have a bunch of these all over my house to control the lights, to play music, to listen to podcasts, and this is a really great little device, and for $100, it's definitely worth it. But the question is the 2023 Apple HomePod worth the price point of $299, which is 3 times the price point of the Apple HomePod Mini, but does it offer 3 times the value? So essentially, this new Apple HomePod is a very slightly larger version of the original for a cheaper price point of $299. There are a few changes to this device, like the removal of some of the speakers, which oddly enough, the sound quality didn't seem to take a hit. It actually sounds just as good as the original HomePod, which is actually probably the reason why they dropped the price in this guy a little bit, because there's less speaker technology in there, which means it's probably cheaper for them to manufacture. Another change, which is a pretty big deal in my opinion, and has been available on the Apple HomePod Mini since it first released, is the full-size screen on the top of the device. The original Apple HomePod only had a little bit of a screen in the center of the device. Now this newer version of the device has a screen that covers the entire circle on top of it. Of course, one of the main reasons that you'd grab an Apple HomePod device of any kind is Siri, and the fact that Siri allows you to control a lot of smart devices in your home. And let's be honest, if you just want a device to control your Apple smart home products, you could just use your phone or even just grab the Apple HomePod Mini for 3 times less. But of course, just like with those devices that I just mentioned, the Apple HomePod is a very capable Siri command taker. Now, to be fair, there is an argument to be made that Siri is not the most capable of virtual assistants. However, there's not really much you can do about that if you're part of the Apple ecosystem. You're kind of stuck with Siri. I have no issues with her whatsoever, but that's just me personally. But I think one of the biggest faults that I've found with my Apple HomePod is that while yes, it is a decent Siri speaker, and yes, it sounds amazing, it can't be used as a Bluetooth speaker, and that's something that hasn't changed from the previous HomePod. Essentially what you have is a giant $300 Siri-enabled speaker that's pretty much all it is. And yes, it sounds amazing, and if you're part of the Apple ecosystem, probably worth it for you if you really want great sound quality, but it's a lot to pay for something that you can't even use as a Bluetooth speaker. But getting back to the changes between this 2023 Apple HomePod and the original Apple HomePod is that this newer version of the HomePod now has a removable power cable, which is something that blows my mind that it wasn't part of the original Apple HomePod. In fact, back when the first HomePod released, people were pulling out the power cable thinking that they could remove it, when in fact they were just destroying the device. Now you can actually remove it and replace it if something happens to it, like maybe your cat chews on it or something like that, which is a great thing. I think it's something that should have been available on the first HomePod. But hey, now you get a feature that you should have gotten on the previous one, and I'm happy about it because it's a cheaper device overall. Oh, and actually, before I forget, I've got a little bit of a PSA for any of you guys who have never owned an Apple HomePod. I've never experienced this personally because I've never owned this particular HomePod, but if you buy the white Apple HomePod, the rubber foot on the bottom of the device can stain wooden surfaces and stain them very, very quickly. So keep that in mind. For my particular HomePod, I actually left the sticker on the bottom of it just to make sure that it wasn't staining anything. It's not as secure as it would be if it was just the rubber foot on the surface, but I like the peace of mind knowing that it's not going to stain my wooden shelf behind me. Again, it's not something that I experienced personally, but I've heard a lot about this happening online, so it's something to just keep in mind. And if you're buying the white Apple HomePod in particular, make sure that you're protecting the surfaces underneath of it, because that's a pretty major flaw. But moving on from the changes and the differences between the older HomePod to the 2023 HomePod, let's talk about some of the things that I love about this device. And the first and largest thing is the sound quality. This HomePod sounds amazing. Like, truly incredible for a device that size. It sounds like the sound system that I have downstairs, which granted is not the best sound system in the world, but it sounds just as good, and it's half the price. Another really cool feature about this HomePod is that if you buy 2 of them, you can actually connect them together and have stereo sound. Now, unfortunately, this only works between like devices. So for example, you can only do this between the 2023 Apple HomePod and another 2023 Apple HomePod, or the Mini and the Mini, or the original and the original. There's no cross stereo sound available, unfortunately, but it is a really cool feature, and it doubles the sound, which is amazing. Of course, connecting your phone to the Apple HomePod is super easy and fast because of the U1 chip. It's in fact incredibly fast. It's mind-blowing how fast it was. I did, however, have to update my phone before I could do this, but as soon as I got it connected seamlessly and almost instantly. And I don't know if they updated the processor inside this device, but it seems to respond quicker to Siri commands than some of my previous Apple HomePod devices. Even faster than my Apple HomePod Minis, which is pretty cool to see, and way faster than the original Apple HomePod. And probably my favorite feature about the Apple HomePod 2023, and realistically all of the previous Apple HomePods, is that it actually scans the room that it's in to ensure that you're getting the best best sound quality possible from its position. It's pretty amazing. The technology behind this device is incredible, and that's something that I think is a little bit better than in previous iterations of the device, but overall, is still incredible. So to answer the question, is the 2023 Apple HomePod worth it? Well, in my opinion, if you love great sound quality, you're part of the Apple ecosystem, and you don't mind dropping $300 on something that's essentially a glorified Siri speaker, then go for it. However, if you're not part of the Apple ecosystem, or you just want Siri controls, or you just want a great Bluetooth speaker, then this is not the device for you. Unfortunately, although there's a lot of good features about this device, it's not that useful. And I just don't know how now in 2023 this device is going to do better than it did a couple years ago. Maybe because more people have the minis in their home, they're willing to grab this more expensive version of the device. I don't know, but I just don't see exactly what Apple's doing with this device, and I don't understand why they think it's going to do better in 2023. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. This could be a device that gets discontinued in the very near future, but until then, it's a great sounding Apple smart speaker. But hey, that pretty much wraps up the entire video for today. Thank you all so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't yet, and I'll see you all in the next one.